Hi everyone, welcome to this video. So I'm going to be talking to you today about international travel and the 4 biggest tips that I have, well it could be international or domestic, for getting a really cheap trip sorted out for yourself. And these are just beyond tips, so they're more so categories because I'm going to be talking in depth about a lot of tips within each of these. And so this will really help you out. I really love to travel so much. I've always loved to travel. I've found a lot of cheap ways to get abroad. I've done multiple $300 round trip flights. Disclaimer, I am on the East Coast. I'm a little lucky with that. I used to be in the Midwest and it's a little more expensive, but we'll talk about that. To go to Europe, I've done Puerto Rico for almost a week for $700 with like an all-inclusive like boat ride to a private island and awesome hotels. And Europe I've gone to for quite a multiple weeks for less than $1,000 each. France, Scandinavia even, and a few other trips, which I'll talk about. So I have figured this out cheaply. I've read a lot of books on this because I really like to go abroad and it has to be inexpensive because I'm just that way. So the first thing that I want to talk you through is the very foundation of planning out a trip. And so the first tip / category is figuring out your large expenses first. So those are the things that are going to trip up your trip overall. Those are housing, so your hotel or hostel, your flight, and any main activities that you feel you absolutely must do. And so with the flight itself, you probably heard about this already. If not, this is a good thing to hear about. I recommend signing up for scotscheapflights.com. There's a lot of really great flight price deals on there. They have a free subscription, which I recommend. You will kind of have to choose your destination based off of the price, which I'll come back to in a second. But it is a great way to get deals. I had a round trip flight to Paris that we found through that. That was, I think we paid $270 or $240 even, something ridiculous to get there. So I do recommend keeping an eye out for those because they scan to look for whenever there's like flight errors, which I don't fully understand how that works. But whenever there's just dips in like the algorithms of how they set the flight prices so that you can get good deals whenever it dips oddly for a very good destination. I recommend that. I also recommend going on to google.com/flights, and this is how I find most of mine, especially if you can choose your trip ahead of time, which is really, honestly, you kind of have to schedule it ahead of time in order to get good deals. Last minute's much harder. To go and look on Google Flights, because what they have is when you set your destination where you're from, you can then, your departure area. For your destination, you can set, let's say it's Europe, you can set like an entire continent. And what it will do, and then you put your dates, it will show you a full map. And that's how I find all my flights. And then you can go on there and based on the map, scroll around, see where it's cheapest to fly into. For Europe specifically, flights between countries in Europe are very inexpensive compared to what we're used to in the United States. I oftentimes will book the cheapest flight I can find to get to Europe, spend a day in whatever destination that is. It's always like a fun bonus and a fun surprise. And then get a cheaper flight through Ryanair, to go to my final destination in Europe because, oh my gosh, there's flights within Europe that I found $17 round trip flights. It's insane to go from like Italy to Spain or something like that. So they really are cheap. They're usually under $100, oftentimes under $75 round trip. So that's one big thing is figure out your flights first. For hotels and hostels, Europe oddly is not that pricey for Airbnbs. I don't understand why it's so much more expensive to get an Airbnb in the United States than it is in Europe. Depending on if you're a family or if you're a single solo traveler, or someone young or someone who's willing to just go with it to put up low prices, I do love hostels. I was so afraid of like ever going to a hostel for the first time. I always go to hostelworld.com to find the best hostels with like the highest ratings because I don't want to risk it. I'd rather pay the extra $8 to get somewhere like that's super nice compared to like others that could be just kind of creepy and weird. So I recommend doing that. Hostels, you could get like a night at a hostel. I was at some amazing places. I really like Generator hostels. Honestly, that's my favorite hostel brand so far. I stay there all the time. There's this place in Paris. They had like a beautiful rooftop. We couldn't see the Eiffel Tower, but it was amazing. They had pretty cheap food there too. And they had all female rooms and I paid $25 a night for that. So recommend that. Airbnb private rooms, a tier up from hostels. Those tend to be less than $50 per night. And you'll be staying in a home with some other people. It can be scary your first time, but honestly, just look up reviews. Look at the reviews of people. Don't go somewhere where there aren't a lot of reviews. Go for someone who looks personable to you. That's not based off of looks, but like based off what people are saying about them. I did a private room in Nice, France. And my host, I call her like my host aunt. She wasn't my host aunt or anything like that. She was so nice. It was so amazing. I got such a fun experience because it's so fun to like actually go into a house of someone who lives in a country and see like the really pretty architecture and like the way that they design it in that style, and like see the different types of like art and interior design setup. So that was really fun. I paid maybe $60 for that. But the reason that I did that over a hostel in Nice was, actually I had never been to a hostel at that point, so I was really scared and I was like really afraid to even like go in one. And that was one of my first times like solo traveling for like 2 days off a trip with some friends. And I went for it because I just wanted a balcony. I wanted like a balcony in Europe, like wake up really pretty, and it was so worth it because she was so nice. She helped you around. She had like all these maps, and she was like a super host on Airbnb, and she watched out to make sure I got back on time. Okay, not that everyone's like responsible to do that. Like made me a little French breakfast. It was so cool. So I really recommend checking Airbnb private rooms and then Airbnbs. Generally they are cheaper than hotels, and especially if you're going to Europe for the first time, it's so much better to get an authentic experience, Europe, any country, whatever it is, by doing that, and you're going to save money. So what we've learned so far, and tip number 1 is check your flights first and check your accommodations. And then lastly, for any big ticket things that you must do while you're in X country or in X place, book that in advance, see if there's any coupons for it, and really try to get like those big things down, because all the smaller stuff we'll deal with in a moment. So the next big tip is really consider your destination based off of the budget of your trip. I think that people fantasize, or like they know that one country or place is more so than others, and then they don't want to try out different places. But honestly, like let's say you're going to want to do a vacation close to the United States. It is cheaper. Our trip, we went to Puerto Rico, not because it's exotic, but because it's cheaper to go to Puerto Rico or Mexico for a week than it is to go to Denver, Colorado, or other places in the United States. So if you want to go somewhere, choose your destination based off of the price, especially if you're looking for budget thing. If you're going for a longer trip and you have time for it, Southeast Asia is going to be a great place for you, but you have to like deal with like the 24 hours of flights to get started with, because you can have a bomb trip for like $400 a week in Thailand, which is insane. So that I definitely recommend kind of broadening your horizon and choosing the place based off the budget, because when you're on vacation, sometimes you just want to do stuff without having to think about it all the time. Within Europe, I speak about Europe a lot because that's where I've traveled to the most, but there, and that's where most people I've talked to have wanted to go to travel and learn more about. So if you're going to Europe, consider Southern Europe over Scandinavia if you want to save money. Beers in Italy, in Spain, can be $3 if you want to go out and have fun or whatever. The hostels are going to be cheaper. The Airbnbs are going to be cheaper if you're bringing your family. It's going to be a lot less money to rent a car there and do like single day excursions if you want to go to islands or day trips and have it like toured on a bus, compared to, you know, Scandinavia. So really choose where you're going. Look for less cost or cheaper places. Sometimes even if it's a more expensive flight, it's actually cheaper to stay there. It is actually cheaper for me to spend a week in Europe than it is to spend a week in California. So a lot of people ask me, why the heck are you flying there all the time? And it's because it's a lot less money. Same with like the Caribbean versus the US. So do keep that in mind and think that through. So my third tip for you is then beyond, you know, checking out all your large expenses and then choosing your destination based on the price, is don't eat out. If you are or only eat out once, if you are genuinely looking to save a crap ton of money on your trip, kind of going down from like the high expenses to the lower expenses. One trip I actually like brought a sandwich on the plane and was like trying to like bring food for like the first 2 days so I didn't have to spend any money. I'm serious when I say I try to spend money on trips. You do not need to eat out when you're abroad. I feel like that is something that's very common with my family on vacations. We always wanted to like go to restaurants because we were on vacation and we wanted to spend money and just have fun. But the food costs really kill your budget. They can really get high up there when you think about tips, when you think about drinks, and if you are wanting to like have a nice bottle of wine. Sorry, I'm going off a little rant. Like in France, so I went to Paris with my friends. You're allowed to drink outside. So what we did was, rather than go out to eat every single day, we chose one nice restaurant for our entire trip that we really wanted to do. It was a really beautiful French restaurant. It had a view of like it was on a rooftop in Paris and like had a view of the Eiffel Tower. So like we were choosing it for experience and because they had escargot and we really wanted to try that and have like a very authentic French like cuisine type experience. For the rest of it, we picnicked right on the front lawn of the Eiffel Tower, and that was a really great view. And we've spent maybe like $5 per meal doing that. And we would go to like the supermarket, buy a bottle of wine. We did it like over sunset, watching like the sparkle of like the Eiffel Tower when like the lights come on at night. So if you're looking to go abroad and you're coming with a family or whoever, just find like literally eat at street vendors, eat at like supermarkets, go pick up sandwiches, and then make it as you go. You know, pick up groceries that are like easy to bring with you, and you will save a ton of money. I mean, you can get your food down to like less than $20 a day, or less, like if you don't eat that much. So really do that. Bring a water bottle with you too that's like glass, and you won't have to keep reusing it, and you can really just kind of cut that budget out as if you were just staying at home almost, because you might not be cooking, and save all that money for your next flight and your next trip, which you have to do, where restaurants you don't have to do. So just choose one really good restaurant. And that's one tip I have. And then the last tip I have is, this is kind of like a 2-in-1, but focus on the free things when you are going abroad. Focus on maybe not seeing, like choose the sites and choose the activities and choose the tours that you know you really, really want to do. But then also recognize that when you are in a different country, at least for me personally, there's so much to take in that's free. Like walking, like the free walking tours that a lot of cities have. If you're solo, you're going to meet some people on that, which is really nice. You'll also learn about some history, and it's free, and it's like from a local. And just like taking in the architecture of another place, people watching, maybe like sitting in a cafe and buying a coffee or something, and people watching or like picnicking, like looking at the sites from the far, like taking photos, like going through different neighborhoods, kind of watching day-to-day life, like sparking up some conversations with people as that you kind of run into them, which oddly always happens when you're traveling. I guess it would happen if I was walking around all day in like Washington DC too. But really focus on the free things, because there's so much that you're going to take in that you won't really have to pay for X attraction unless you really want to go to it. Over planning your trip it's going to make it more costly, and if there's something you really want to do, by all means do it. But also remember that you don't have to hit every single, site or every single thing people talk about when you look on TripAdvisor for a particular area. Go for the things that you really want to do, and then the things that you don't care so much, don't spend like the $25 or $50 for admission if it's that much money. You don't need to buy the city pass if there's only 2 things you want to go to, and just take the money and save it for your next trip. You'll get so much more out of it, and it's going to be so much better. So focus on the free things. Mark your top couple things, and then from there, just, kind of let things go as they happen. And so I hope this is helpful for people who are looking to travel abroad and save some money. Really, the key things of anything here, aside from, like kind of detaching from going out to eat all the time, is choose your trip based off of the price. Trips to Scandinavia will always be more expensive than trips to, like Puerto Rico or Thailand, depending on the time. So it's really those big key things and like the overall price of the country that you're in that's going to really determine everything else. But within that, you can kind of price arbitrage a bit more and get some good deals based off of like, looking at your housing, all of options that are available, as well as being really smart about flights and maybe using like something like Scott's cheap flights to get good flight deals, or using Google Flight Explorer to look at specific dates and then negotiating with your boss leaving on a Tuesday to come back on a Tuesday versus a Saturday to a Saturday. So thank you so much for watching this. If you are interested in more travel videos, go ahead and subscribe to this. I will be talking a lot about each of the countries I go to and more details on how I've saved money within each of those. And so I really appreciate you watching this. I also have more of these tips written in blog format if you want to go through and look at the links of all of these things, which I'll be linking below as well. But thank you so much, and have fun on that trip.